with my non-Swedish dialect, it's also easy for you to understand, so that's why I'm doing this in English. I don't see anything here, so, oh, one sec, here we go, a little bit too fast. I want to start with a small video clip, but it's, here we go. I think this is where I'm going to work. Here we go.
Good.
So no sound, sorry.
You can imagine the sound of a snail.
Yes, it's just some background music. Oh, here we go. That's good. No. Oh, it's the other one. So you see, this is the new Billerud branding movie, I would say, and it's not about paper, it's about packaging. And actually, I would say that's what our company is doing. We're talking a lot about packaging and packaging solutions, and that's actually what we're providing and offering to the market. And of course, there are different requirements, so we try to answer all of them, and maybe not all at the same time with the same product and the same solution, but you can look at the traction for consumers or customers, increased productivity, lower transportation costs, for instance. We're working with solutions for reduced waste, and of course looking at lower environmental impact. And of course we are doing this with the basis of the material that we produce and that we love so much, which is paper. But it could be anything. It could be from a sack paper, a bag solution. It could be for a corrugated board construction. And it could even be for a three-dimensional paper. And my responsibility is in this three-dimensional paper, which is FibreForm. So of course that's my little baby. So that's also, I would say, our latest and newest product development. And that's why I want to go a little bit deeper into that. I don't know if some of you recognize this one on the picture. You could see it, I think was it 1 month ago in the south of Stockholm at an exhibition. When working with FibreForm and when introducing a material like this, which is very new, I will come into some of the properties. You have to really understand that you have to work with all the partners in the value chain. Otherwise, we cannot really offer the packaging solution that we're looking for. And I mean, this is just a small schematic picture, but let's start in the beginning. Let's talk a little bit about FibreForm, and then we move on down the value chain towards the end. So when we look at FibreForm, I hope some of you have already heard about it, because it's actually not the first time we're not newly introducing this. We introduced this for the first time about 2 years ago. But I would say still for the Scandinavian market, it is quite new. So FibreForm is a paper, and it's, I would say, quite a revolutionary paper, and it behaves completely different than other papers. And why is that? It's because it has very high stretchability. And the stretch gives you very interesting possibilities when it comes to packaging. For instance, you can shape it. You can shape it in different forms, textures, patterns, and do a lot of it with from design perspective. But also you can use it, since you can form it in different processes, like for instance thermoforming or press forming or embossing. And specifically looking at thermoforming, you can replace some of the plastics that are used today. Then, since it is a paper, you can basically apply any barrier on it you want, whether it's an extrusion coating or glue lamination or dispersion coating. Also when it comes to printing. And it's based on a patented technology. So we see, I would say, 3 obvious opportunities, areas applications where we see possibilities to sell it. And I would say the biggest one and the most obvious one for us, and where we see the biggest benefits, is in the tray and blister area. And this is also very much where you can replace a big part of the plastic that is used in these type of products. I have an example of a company we're working closely with. I think you know this company. You've listened to Pennyström this morning. And they are working a lot with FibreForm to produce laminates, which then end up in a thermoformed MAP package, for instance. Could also be a vacuum pack. Then we have an area where we're looking very much at the embossing and the design aspect of FibreForm, and then it's in the box and display area. Also, we have huge success in, I would say, the cup market. This is an example of a paper cup which is sleeved, so only the outside of this cup is sleeved with FibreForm, giving opportunities to do embossing, logo types on the sleeve. And at the same time, it gives the cup producer a huge flexibility and lower cost, since they're using less material. So depending on what sort of application we're looking at, we see different possibilities and different potentials. Besides these three obvious ones for us, there are a lot of other areas where companies that have become interested in this material are doing trials and tests that is not something which we have thought of in the first place. It doesn't even necessarily have to be packaging, but it's definitely very interesting developments, and it shows the potential and the possibilities with a material like this. Okay, if we move then to the converting side. This is of course very important to us that we have partners here. As I mentioned, we are working a lot with flexers from Lund that are putting different types of barriers on the FibreForm material, specifically for different trays. But it's, I would say it can be used for many different manufacturing processes. From a converting perspective, as I mentioned, thermoforming, vacuum packing, press forming, embossing, and even hot foiling, or a combination of those. On printing side, you can either print it in flexo, you can print it in offset, you can print it in digital printing, and even screen printing possibilities you have after forming. Looking at design, this is a project that actually was initiated by Nine a while ago, and you can see the argument why the design people from Sony Ericsson were interested in using this material. Creating unique design that communicates environment, and specifically the communication of the environment is one of the main features here. So it's a pure and strong material, and what is very liked with paper is that it's the tactility, the natural look, the feel of the material. Also the possibility to form it and then actually have a forming which is specific for your own package. So doing icon packaging, which you can then, for instance, patent for your own company. So no other companies will be able to use that. We're trying to contribute ourselves as well, helping with the design aspects. We, I would say, have two ways of doing that. The first one is through our Pack Labs. We have different laboratories within Billerud, and one is specifically looking at working with FibreForm material, doing mock-ups, having a thermoforming line standing there to help, for instance, brand owners, but even converters to test laminates, to test their forming, to test packages on that line. And at the same time, we work, of course, a lot in these projects together with converters and packaging producers. Then we have the possibility to turn to June. We're here talking this morning as well. Mine is, I don't know if you mentioned that, it's majority owned by Billerud. And, well, I'm not going to go into your offer, but when you're looking more into concepts, then June is definitely the guy to talk to. Or it's starting from concepts. And good. For us, a very important cooperation has been with machine producers, because of course we understand that when you're coming with a new material, one of the first questions that pops up is, okay, how much do we have to invest in our machinery, or do we have to buy completely new machines? Important questions, of course, which we understand. And this comment is from a tool maker, which is producing tools specifically for thermoforming lines for pre-made trays, brands like Kiefel and those type of companies, who says, well, it's basically you put the material in and you can form it, no problem. So we have worked a lot with different ones, and Multifac is one of the early ones, one of the bigger ones as well, but you can run it on CFS lines, Kiefel as I mentioned, Colematic, all forming machines that work well with FibreForm. Looking at embossing and hot foiling, I think we've definitely been discussing a lot and testing a lot with the biggest players on the market. Bobst, Hinder & Muhlich, which is a tool maker. Printing side, as I mentioned, both within Flexo and offset, and with really good results. Now specifically thermoforming, I would say, is there we are very close to market, because you basically don't have to make any changes on your machinery. We recommend you to make changes in your tooling, because the forming of the material demands a little bit on the angles, which you can achieve, specifically if you compare to plastic, and also when it comes to depth. But when you're looking at shallow tray materials, FibreForm or FibreForm laminate, I would say, is excellent to use. And I think the best way to explain that is not by me saying it, but is by showing it. Then we put in the middle one. Here we go. So this is a movie which is made at Multifac's premises in Lund, in the test center, on one of their lines. And as you can see, they have adapted tooling with more shallow angles. But when it comes to the process, I would say it's the same as putting in a polymer reel. So to be perfectly clear, so this is FibreForm laminate, so it has a barrier on top of it. Of course, you have to adjust the machine. It's or the installations, the pressure. It's mainly the pressure, I would say. FibreForm can be formed without adjusting the temperature. And now what you see here is then the vacuum forming, the suction and forming the tray. I can honestly say we have done a lot of tests. It's working on the lines. Also, this is the only material actually which can withstand this type of process. So taking another material either will burst or will not form, depending on the rigidity and the thickness. And you feel it and you seal it. Yeah, you can do this also with a paper film on top, if you want to. Now in the area which you've seen there, where it's shallow packages, we have seen, we are out on the market in a lot of countries. I would say in actually the majority of Europe. Flex is doing an excellent work in the UK and in France, but we are also on the market in Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, Germany, Poland, Czech Republic. Unfortunately, and I hope that will change now, Scandinavia, and specifically Sweden, has been a little bit behind. So I'm keeping my hopes up with 200 people sitting here, all interested in new developing materials. Please, come forward to us, okay? Good. Then from a brand owner perspective, there we've seen a huge interest. People that are first of all very curious, seeing, okay, what is this? This is new. But also people that actually have taken it to market, and this is an example of one of the early adopters. Marks and Spencers are known for that. And their arguments are very much when it comes to the environmental aspect. And to boost your green profile, I would say, is the main motivator. And of course, the tactility of the package and the natural feel is very important. But of course, there are also facts behind this, and I will not go into the whole discussion about paper versus plastic, but I think we are all quite aware, we heard it from all the paper producing company, the advantages of using a fiber-based material when it comes to the uptake of CO2 and the exit of oxygen in comparison to polymer-based, fossil-based materials. And then of course there's opportunities for lightweighting. By the way, that story I might not have to tell here in Scandinavia where everybody's aware of that, but that's definitely not the same everywhere, not even if you go to Central Europe. And to make that a little bit more concrete, and this is just an example, but where you would normally see a package like this, and in this case it's, well, Fleisch, so it's some sort of meat, sausage in this case, would be both the tray and the top film would be in plastic. What you could do is you could go to a more fiber-based, FibreForm-based package where you would have the tray formed in FibreForm, and at the same time, we haven't seen that yet, but you could do a lot of interesting things from a design perspective as well. And that things like this will have possibilities to replace up to about 65% of plastic, and have a positive impact on the environment by decreasing the carbon footprint up to even 75%. And this is of course depending on which construction you're using and what you're replacing with. So to summarize this, and to finalize this, we know and we see it out on the market that FibreForm creates huge unique packaging opportunities to drive your business. When it comes to the natural look, when it comes to the design possibilities, at the same time it increases the customer experience by the tactility. You can do it with easy peel. You can have, for instance, in this case, a ready-to-serve package. And finally, of course, the natural choice, the lower impact on the environment. That's it for me. Thank you.
Talking about the environment, is it so environment friendly I can throw it on the compost?
Well, in this case, when you have food packages, there are barriers involved.
Okay.
And of course, our aim is that these barriers are bio barriers, because in that case you could actually do it. But today's reality is that we are not that far yet. But we're trying to take steps in the right direction by, say, decreasing the percentage of plastic in these type of packages, for instance.